A blessed Sunday to all. Just a little rejoinder because last Sunday, I already made a reference to the Gospel of John to be read beginning today until 5 Sundays. No? The Gospel readings for this year supposed to be in the cycle B is on the Gospel of Mark. But why are we redirecting ourselves to the Gospel of John? One of the reasons is that the Gospel of Mark is shorter, is the shortest of the four Gospels. And since the cycle actually is too long, okay, it takes the Gospel of John. And the portion of the Gospel of John is John chapter 6, starting with the feeding of the 5,000, and will be continuously reflecting on the following Sundays on the discourse on the bread of life, which is very much at the heart of the feeding of the 5,000. And of course, you must have read already that this has a very strong Eucharistic dimension. In fact, the terminologies that are used actually when Jesus took the bread, blessed, broke, and shared is actually none other than the Eucharistic gestures. Now, another thing that we have to take into account is the gospel reading last Sunday stopped or ended with Jesus looking at the people, felt pity. He was touched. His heart was touched with so much pity because he saw them, the people, like a sheep without a shepherd. And so he started to teach them many things. In other words, if we are putting the Eucharist in this particular dimension, the gospel last Sunday when Jesus taught many things to the crowd, like sheep without a shepherd, but he is not already the shepherd now there, okay, is the liturgy of the word. And today's gospel reading and the following Sundays, we will be focusing on the liturgy of the Eucharist, the center of which is the bread come down from heaven, the very bread who is Jesus himself. Now, in this particular context of today's gospel reading, just a tiny detail which many people may not have or may not be able to recognize is actually a very interesting verse when St. John said, after Jesus commanded the people to recline, the Gospel of John says, now there was a great deal of grass in that place. Okay? Of course, there is a reason why St. John was talking about it because it was the Passover feast was fast approaching. And when is this celebration? When is this feast celebrated? It is celebrated during springtime. And the great deal of grass is an indication that it is springtime. However, there is a deeper dimension to the significance if we try to connect the details. Take note that Jesus saw the people like a shepherd like a sheep without a sheep, or without a shepherd, like a sheep without a shepherd. And when he had the people reclined, when it said, now there was a great deal of grass, isn't this what the shepherd does to the people? Okay? The symbolic element of the green grass, the plenty of grass in the area, is a reminder of the good shepherd leading the flock to the grazing ground, to the place where there is so much food to eat. And of course, put together the blessing and the multiplication of the loaves, even more than what we have heard from the first reading. Now, the prophet Elisha actually performed the multiplication of loaves, but it is only from 5 loaves to feed 100. Sayon raman na ba? Gagmay-gagmayon ra, di ba? 5 kapan, kunya 100 tagpila. So, usa ka pan, usa ka loaf, 20 ka tao. No, nabitaw tay panultion nga nagkanayon. Bisan pagpila mo kabuk magbahin-bahin basta liso na siya sa talisay o unsa ngalan anang ng tanuma, bisan unsa kagamay mabahin na sa daghan. In other words, the little portions are enough to be considered as providence. Okay? Because whatever little there is, according to the principle, it always has something to do with how God has actually demonstrated and actually shown His kindness and His generosity. That is also the same thing that St. Paul is telling us in today's second reading. No? To have this generosity in our hearts. Nga bisag unsa ang atong ikatabang, bisag gamay lamang. No? Jutay lang kini, apan kinasing-kasing. Napay kanta ana gani sa offertory, no? Jutay lang kini gihalad ko karon apan kinasing-kasing. That is the great experience of the people then at the time of Jesus. And this is what we experience at the same time in the Eucharist as we celebrate. So with the green grass all over the place and with Jesus' multiplication of the loaves, we are now brought into this very experience right here and now. But not only in this place, because all over the world, whenever the Holy Eucharist is celebrated, it goes beyond the symbolic and the actual reception of the body and blood of Christ. Because this is a constant reminder and challenge that don't think I am poor, or don't think that I only have a little that we cannot share. Okay? Whatever little we can share, whatever little we can apportion, when God blesses that little thing or that little share that we can give, it means a lot already. Most especially for those people who are in great need. And that's the reason why the pantries that we have heard happening in our country, okay, and the very gestures, that many people are giving, even a little of their time, a little of their self, a little of what they have, actually means a Eucharistic gesture. And finally, if we put into perspective our first celebration of the World Day of the Grandparents and the Elderly. And most probably this is in connection with the feast tomorrow, which is, by the way, the feast of Saint Joachim and Anne, diba? The grandparents of Jesus. But since we are confronted with so many things happening around us, especially during the pandemic, we are so grateful to the Lord for having our elderly still struggling and continuously even showing the young ones that they are actually robust, di ba? They even insisted nga ano pa man nga mag-ayapilo mi sa lockdown, di ba? But it is a constant way of reminding and accepting and acknowledging that these elderly people, especially our grandparents, are examples and in fact inspirations for us young ones to achieve such a great year of presence and existence with us. Because as I said at the start of the Mass, this is none other than, or after all, life that is God's gift that we have to live to the fullest, together with God's grace, together with His providence, and with each other helping to make things lighter despite the great challenges that happen in our times, in our world, in the here and now. Amen.